Hey everybody, this is Perch. You can always tell when somebody gets all riled up on the internet because I get a bunch of questions all about the same thing. So in this case, the issue is something called the fantastic ratio. Basically, there's a claim that Stan Lee said that women should constitute, for every three males, one female. So 25% of the time, there should be women on a team. And if you put too many women on the team, I'm not sure what's wrong. I'm not sure what happens. The cycle's all aligned. No, that's a terrible joke. No, don't mean that. Don't mean it at all. So people are basically asking, multiple things. First of all, what's this fantastic ratio business? Did Stan Lee say anything like this? And how many women are too many women on a team? And so, for what it's worth, I don't know. I've never come across this. I think I've read I would say more Stan Lee than most. Haven't discovered it anywhere. If it doesn't really even sound like his kind of joke, the fantastic ratio. I mean, he would joke about the fantastic ratio being a team of some kind, like a new superhero. Like he would go into hype mode. And the thing about Stan Lee is he wouldn't. So the problem is Marvel has published plenty of comics that have women that are 50% of the team or more. New Mutants and X-Men spring immediately to mind, but then there's been other kind of moments in the Avengers and other things. And Stan Lee pretty much was of the mind of if it made money equals good. He would not go out there and say, too many women are bad when his company are putting out comics with more than 25% women in a team. That's very much against his character. Stan Lee, if we had one rule, one pretty consistent rule, it was I don't know, for lack of a better word, don't shit where you eat. So I don't buy that. To me, it feels like a troll. I think that was a made up quote designed to troll people, is what I believe. Because anyway, there's no proof of this quote. There's no evidence of this quote, and it's an easy one. Fantastic ratio. You can easily search into that term, and anyway, it doesn't jibe with Stan's character. So I don't know. It feels like people effing around on the internet is what that feels like. But there you go. Um, and what's weird is this being attributed to two different people at this point. My belief is that this started with EVS. I think he made a post, as you do, trolling on Twitter, and then some other guy I don't know picked it up and started throwing it around like he had come up with it. But anyway, timeline. Who cares? The bigger question is how many women is too many women for a team, and the answer to this is doesn't matter. It's a story good. It's a story good. One of the dumber things I saw in the defense of this was, well, manga uses this fantastic ratio rule, pointing to One Piece. I do love that series, and Demon Slayer and other ones like that, where there are certainly more male characters to female characters. The core group of the Demon Slayer team are three men and a woman, or a girl, or a demon, or the sister of one of the dudes, or whatever. My One Piece is kind of a different story because granted there are men, but I mean, Chopper is a boy reindeer. Frankie is a boy cyborg. There's certainly I don't know that you certainly have that ratio. However, in manga, you also have things like Sailor Moon, which is pretty much all women, and you have Eiko, and Tenchi Moyo is one guy and all filled with women. I mean, the rule, that theory doesn't hold up in manga because there's tons and tons and tons of very, very successful manga that feature primarily women. In fact, one of the almost overused tropes is that you get one guy, and it's called harem manga. Basically, the idea that one guy has tons of women chasing after him. Tenchi Moyo followed this. Ranma followed this to kind of. Even no, there's just been tons. Is I guess the point. My Hero Academia, I think that has more men to women, but not by much. That's pretty evened out. Now, granted, the main characters Bakugo and Midoriya certainly, they've featured more of the men on that show than the women. But the team makeup's about the same. Look, this is all to me a pretty stupid conversation, because the answer is the story good? And I guess you'd have to make the case that there's no way to make a good story if you had more than 25% women. But of course, that's bullshit, because we've seen X-Men, and Claremont's been able to pull it off successfully many times, as have others. So you could absolutely have female comics sell well, or comics where there's more women than men. I think people have pointed to A-Force as an example of, look, there's a female superhero team that failed. I'm like, yeah, but the comic sucked. Like, as an experiment for yourself, read that comic and just mentally swap out all the women for men in that comic. You actually can pretty easily, because there's nothing inherently female about what's going on in that comic. Sounds weird because they're women characters, but nothing is written there that you couldn't easily swap it out for all men, but it would still suck. The comic was boring. It was written poorly. I mean, it wasn't a good comic. So you could put all women, all men, all robots in that thing, all Pokemon, it would still blow. It's just not, it's not good. Now, a lot of comics and cartoons initially were written or created for boys. Boys is the audience. That's why things like G.I. Joe, Transformers, Thundercats, etc. tended to feature more boy characters, because they were trying to sell off merchandise and things to, wait for it, boys. Whether Target keeps valiantly trying by taking boys and girls off of things. They recently, even in Texas here in this area, they've taken boys and girls off of the clothes in certain areas in those sections, which gets really confusing, and again is also relatively pointless, because people are going to gravitate toward what they like. So you can label it or you can not label it, but it's all going to amount to the same. When you go by the toy aisle, they've removed boys and girls from the toy kind of sections, but mystery upon mysteries. If you go to if you just walk by the place where the cars and the action figures are, there tend to be more boys there, and if you wander by the dolls and that area, you tend to get more girls. I mean, who knew? Lego is the big, unifying ground in the middle where people circulate. But look, I think that this is, again, it's very, very simple. Write a good story. You could have 1 woman in it, 50 women in it, 0 women in it. If it's a good story, people gravitate to it. There you go. The end. I mean, there's really not any more to this argument. I think that, if you point to several of these comics that have, more female characters in them and they get canceled, well, again, look at the quality of them. They're not good books. Was that not fantastic? Briefly, there's just been a bunch of comics that Marvel has done lately that end on like 3-4 issues in. They're not meant to be a limited series, but they become limited series because they just don't sell. And you go, who could have seen this coming? Well, everybody, because when you read the comic, it's boring. You need, I said this in another video, you need action, you need forward momentum in your comic. And when I say action, I need to keep getting hung up on that word, because to a lot of people, action means superhero fights, people punching each other, things like that. But what I mean by action is just forward momentum, forward progress. Something is happening. Dogman has plenty of action in it. The dog's trying to catch a criminal. It's like it's very easy to understand for kids, boys and girls alike. So, is there any rule? I mean, quite frankly, if you go over to Japan, very, very popular are manga that feature more women than men, usually as fan service and in states of undress. So put it this way. I'm not saying this would make a better comic. However, if you took old A-Force there, that same comic, but you had them, somehow they got teleported to another planet and lost all their clothes, and they had to wander around in bikinis and hunt things in water, and the water had random pools of oil that would just kind of splash off. I mean, if you had the comic, sounds like a terrible comic, but if you had the comic that way, I guarantee you it would have sold more, even though it was all women. I mean, is that cheating? Yes, but there you go. Anyway, I don't think there's any hard and fast rule. I think that the key is tell a good story. And there's, no matter what you do, no matter what math you do, what theories you do, there's no cheating that premise. There's no getting around the hard work of actually, putting out a good story with forward momentum that people want to read. You can have there's plenty of comics out there right now that have more men than women, or no women, or 25. There's comics out there that are like this, and they're awful because this story sucks. I mean, look, this current Punisher run, I'm not enjoying that comic at all. It's awful. And yet, and if you are, hey, no, I'm sorry, not trying to insult you. If you're enjoying it, good for you. But I don't enjoy it. And that comic is all dudes. It's the Punisher and a bunch of dude ninjas. I mean, technically fairly genderless ninjas. I have no idea what they are under that hood. You got an old woman crone, and every now and then Frank's wife shows up primarily so he could bone her, and that's it. It's mostly dudes. The comic's awful. So I don't know. They could subtract more of the women out of that comic. It's not going to make it any better. They could add more women in. Probably not going to make it better. I mean, I don't know. Again, using my theory of just sell stuff to men who just want to see TNA. You could take that Punisher comic, and you could have all the women, all the ninjas, in just in bikinis and thongs. They're wearing Psylocke's outfit. Yeah, sales are going to go up 20%. Anyway, I've gone astray. So anyway, to the answer to these questions, no, I have not heard of the fantastic ratio. The fantastic ratio sounds like something's going to happen to somebody on Twitter who posts that theory about the fantastic ratio. It sounds like that person's going to get a fantastic ratio, but I don't know. Whatever. I've never heard of that. It goes against many parts of Stan Lee's character. And again, if you're looking at manga, yes, you could point to a couple very popular manga series, but over time, no. There's plenty. Sailor Moon is a beast of sales. I mean, it's older, yeah, but I mean that thing made money. So nobody is crying about old bankrupt Sailor Moon over there. It's doing just fine. Anyway, thanks for the questions. Kind of grouped a bunch of them in one, saved some time, and thanks for listening.